Dividing with 0 and 1. Hello, my name is Ashley and I will be taking you through the 4 rules when dividing with 0 and 1. Rule number 1, dividing by 1. Rule number 2 is dividing a number by itself. Rule number 3 is dividing a number by 0. And rule number 4 is dividing by 0. Now let's get started. For today's lesson, we're going to be learning how to divide with 0 and 1. For the first rule, when any number is divided by 1, the quotient is that number. For example, 4 divided by 1 equals what? We can start with 1 times what number is going to give us 4? One times 4 is going to give us 4. So if 1 times 4 equals 4, then 4 divided by 1 is going to also be 4. For example, you can also divide like this. 1 divided by 4. 1 goes into 4 times. 4 times 1 equals 4. You bring this number down here, subtract these two numbers, and you get a 0 remainder. Good? Let's try a couple more problems. 8 divided by 1 is going to equal what? Well, we're going to set it up just like we did the other. 1 divided by 8. 1 goes into 8 times. 8 times 1 equals 8. Bring this number down here, subtract these two numbers, and you get a 0 remainder. Let's try another. Let's try 2 divided by 1. Let's see what that's going to give us. Set it up. 1 divided by 2. 1 goes into 2 times. 2 times 1 is 2. Bring that down, subtract these two numbers, and you get a 0 remainder. So basically, bringing us back to the rule, when any number is divided by 1, the answer is going to be that number. Rule number 2, when any number is divided by itself, the quotient is always 1. The exception to that rule is 0, but we'll get into that a little bit later. For example, 7 divided by 7 equals what? Well, for the last rule, we took the number and times it by 1. So 7 times 1 equals what? 7. So 7 divided by 7 is going to equal 1. For example, you can also divide like this. 7 divided by 7, 7 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. Subtract these two numbers and you get a 0 remainder. Now let's move on to some practice problems. Let's take 3 divided by 3. 3 divided by 3. 3 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract these numbers and you get a 0 remainder. Let's try another one. What is 9 divided by 9? We'll set it up just like we did the other problem. 9 divided by 9. 9 goes into 9 once. 1 times 9 is 9. We'll subtract these two numbers and get a 0 remainder. Now we're going to try 1 divided by 1. That's the most confusing one. And we'll see what that gets us. So let's set it up. 1 divided by 1. 1 is going to go into 1 once. 1 times 1 is 1. Subtract these two numbers and you get 0. So back to the rule. When any of these numbers is divided by itself, it's going to always equal 1. Let's move on to rule number 3. When 0 is divided by a number, the quotient is 0. The exception to that rule is 0, but like I said, we'll get into that later on. Let's start with an example. 0 divided by 2 equals what? Well, if we take 2 and multiply it by a number, we will get 0. What is this number? 2 times 0 is going to equal 0. So 0 divided by 2 is going to be 0. Now, for example, just like the other rules, you can also solve it like this. 0 divided by 2. 2 cannot go into 0, so we put a 0 up here. 0 times 2 equals 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Therefore, 0 divided by 2 is 0. Now, let's move on to some practice problems. Let's try 0 divided by 4. Just like the other problem, we're going to set it up like so. 0 divided by 4. 4 cannot go into 0, so we put a 0. 0 times 4 is 0. Subtract these two numbers and you get 0. Therefore, 0 divided by 4 is 0. Let's try another one. Let's try 0 divided by 6. Set it up. 6 cannot go into 0. So we put a 0. 0 times 6 is 0. Subtract these and we get 0. So 0 divided by 6 is 0. Let's go back to the rule. So when 0 is divided by any number, that number is going to equal 0 always, with the exception of 0. 0 divided by 0 is undefined. Moving on to rule number 4. You cannot divide by 0. This is the simplest rule and the easiest to remember. For example, 3 divided by 0 equals what? Well, what 0 times what number is going to give us 3? Nothing. There is no number that works for this problem. So 3 divided by 0 cannot be done. It is undefined. Is a number that does not exist. Basically, you cannot divide nothing into a number. So taking us back to rule number 4, you cannot divide by 0. Now let's review what we learned. Rule number 1, dividing by 1. For this example, we have 4 divided by 1. We're going to set it up. 1 goes into 4 times. 4 times 1 is 4. Subtract, and you get a 0 remainder. Rule number 2, dividing a number by itself. 7 divided by 7 we have here for our example. We're going to set it up and solve. 7 goes into 7 once. 7 times 1 is 7. Subtract these two numbers and you get a 0 remainder. Let's move on to rule number 3. Dividing a number by 0. For this example, we have 0 divided by 2. So we're going to set it up and solve. 2 cannot go into 0, therefore we place a 0 up top. 0 times 2 is 0. Subtract these numbers and we get a 0 remainder. Rule number 4, dividing by 0. This cannot be done. It is an undefined number. Thank you for watching. I really hope this video was helpful for you.